We all know that for nearly half a century, Bil Dunaway has been the voice of Aspen.
Bil was an innovator in so many ways, obviously with the Aspen Times, with his radio station playing classical music, and with cable TV. And at that time, to start a cable TV company in a little town in the mountains was very difficult technically, but Bil went and did it.
The media mogul of the Valley. He owned papers in Rifle and Glenwood Springs, and he owned radio stations. And I mean, we got worried that even though he was a great exponent of freedom of speech, he was the owner of all the organs of speech in the Valley,
Yes, Bil is the great communicator, but does everyone know Bil's other side?
Probably the first time I skied with Bil, it was back in probably 1969. We got off the chairlift and he took off, and he took probably 2 turns at most to get to the bottom, and I heard somebody say, "There goes Runaway Dunaway." So ever since then, that's sort of been my nickname for him.
And I also discovered that Bil has no nerve endings. I mean, he seems to be impervious to any of these things, which turned me sort of blue with fears.
Bil was born in Persia in 1923 and grew up in Switzerland, where he learned to ski and climb. During World War II, he was a member of the 10th Mountain Division and received the Bronze Star for his efforts in Italy. He graduated from the University of Washington, where he was a member of the ski team, and wound up with a master's in economics. With the war and college behind him, Bil headed to Europe to ski.
Well, this was in 1953, and I was living in Chamonix at the time, and I was fairly well known as an American skier, because in those days there weren't official American teams in Europe. And Léonard Terray was a very famous French alpinist who'd been on Annapurna, and he made also Macalou and Fitzroy made these first ascents. And he needed to film the show with that, and he got the idea of skiing down from the summit of Mont Blanc, which nobody had ever done before. And it isn't, in the light of today's extreme skiing, it isn't really a difficult task. But in those days, nobody had done it, and he did. He asked me to be in the film because he knew he didn't have to pay me.
The Mont Blanc film provided the impetus for Bil to head back to the States, where he toured the country lecturing and showing his historic descent. Bil had another historic descent. Skiing in a downhill race in 1956, Bil wiped out on Aspen Mountain's straw pile and landed in the hospital with a nasty broken leg. But it wasn't too long before Bil was up and around.
And I got out of the hospital, I was crutching around town, and I just happened to crutch into the Aspen Times. And you know how it is when you go into some place or see something you like, and you sort of kick tires. I asked the former owner, Verlin Ringo, if he'd ever thought of selling the newspaper. And I remember his words, I mean, just as clear as if they were today. He said, "I'd sell it today if somebody would pay my price." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, what is your price?"
And the rest, as they say, is history. Aspen in 1956 was a closed community in many respects. That is, until Bil took over the newspaper.
He opened up politics in this town and made it public. the politics were controlled by a group of men who had pretty much run it like their own private little club. And he insisted on public meetings. And so I think probably that was his greatest contribution.
Under Bill's guidance, the Aspen Times became a true community newspaper. It was a philosophy that took some getting used to, but Bill held fast.
He was a great defender, I think, of the First Amendment, and really brought what was supposed to be a public process that had become private into the public domain, and he made sure that it stayed there.
Though his paper was impartial, Bill's editorials were strong and clear. He was instrumental in the renovation of Aspen's dismal water plant in the 1950s, ardently against Vietnam, and supported the hippies' right to be in Aspen in the 60s and 70s. Along the way, Bill was named Outstanding Editor of Colorado by CU Journalism School in 1962, Editor of the Year by Colorado Press Association in 1978, and a Times Commendation from the American Civil Liberties Union. It's Bill's tolerance of widely varying points of view that is a true asset.
Bill was just tolerant for different points of view. It really didn't matter. And his paper represented that. I think he also got a staff that worked for very little money because he was so tolerant of their points of view, because everyone, I think, pretty much thought they ran it, and so Bill didn't have to pay very much. Did anybody say that Bill is a fairly tight guy with money? Okay.
Tight, yes, but as financially conservative as Bill can be, he can also be equally generous.
He bought a series of small apartments scattered around town, and he put people who worked for the newspaper in those apartments. And so when you work for the newspaper, especially when you were beginning and just needed a place to hang your hat, it often came with a place to stay. And so he was a precursor of the affordable housing programs that he was a big proponent for.
In addition to the Blind Outdoor Leadership Program, where he is not only president but serves as a ski instructor, Bill's support of Ballet West and Dance Aspen and continued dance programming is steadfast, as is his advocacy for the Aspen Music Festival and School, where he is an active board member. Perhaps the truest testament of Bil Dunaway is not his communications empire or his numerous adventures. It's the love of wife Barbara, daughter Tina, and the many close friends Bill has cultivated through the years. Fritz Stomberger, who worked at the Aspen Times and was one of Bill's climbing partners, was one of those friends. In 1974, he disappeared in Pakistan while attempting a solo ascent of Tur-e-Shmir.
The rescue mission we did for Fritz back in '74, I believe it was, probably is an indication of what type of a person Bill is, because at the when we could not establish what was going on with Fritz, without hesitation, Bill made a phone call, and he and I decided that we would go and look for Fritz on our own. And I think Bill was totally, he didn't hesitate one bit to do that. And I think this is an indication of really a person that loves the mountains and is willing to do whatever is necessary to help out a friend, especially a climbing friend.
So what does Bil Dunaway think about being selected for the Aspen Hall of Fame?
It's an honor. I was surprised. Surprised because I'm not dead yet.
That's certainly true. Bill will be a legend in Aspen for many, many years to come.